Good morning. Welcome.
Okay. Yeah, welcome to the Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Dear Becky and Lizzie edition.
Dramatic reenactment of what just happened when we pushed record. I was over there and she was here and we both just went. Yeah. So
it's morning.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in kind of miserable and maybe going to be a little better later today, Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion there.
You know the sun yesterday, which was making up for the rain the day before.
It's gone.
It went away.
Well, I was driving in and I told Bernie as there's mist on the windshield, and I'm like, this does not count as precipitation.
No.
So like,
I mean, I use my wipers on the way.
It could be doing it all day. And
my fancy Apple Watch, which is not necessarily right. When I tap on the weather and it says cloudy right now, and then I tap on it again, it goes from, I can't show y'all because it'll go to sleep. It goes from partially cloudy to sunny to partially cloudy again.
So it could be a while before we get to the sunny
and even with the sunny, it's not supposed to get above 60.
Maybe 60s, early.
Like low 60s.
Yeah.
Which is why I was like, they closed down some windows accordingly. Yeah. It's just yucky out, and it was yucky overnight. And yeah.
Our rain gauge
spring.
Didn't say we got hardly any rain, but it was just nasty.
Oh, and when she's talking about mist, I have fog. You can barely see the car coming at you at 10 paces like up on the mountain where I live. So mountain, it's not really, but it's just higher than here. So it's not, there's bigger mountains around us. But anyway, so I thought I took one of these home last night and I didn't.
So,
but look what mine looks like. Okay, hang on. This is I thought I was going to finish yesterday Echo Point. Did I? No. Because, well, and it wasn't even, no, it's because I was cleaning up in the shop. It wasn't that we were busy with customers. It's that I actually put yarn away. So,
we were having a work day yesterday.
Yes, because the sunny day was slow and the rainy day before that was busy. Go figure. So before I reveal where my Ranunculus is at, by the way, we're at over 100 people in the knit along group. Ooh. And not all of those are Ranunculi knitters or anything, but it's been fun. So yes, compare this, my thick Ranunculus, I'm finally making traction on because I stayed up and made a video last night on a part of the yoke so I could keep going. I was a little tired. You might notice that in the video if you watch over on the Tips and Tricks channel. So this is what it looked like when I started. This is what it looks like now. Which means that this is what my Ranunculus looks like right now.
Ooh.
So
I like that.
Yeah, it's partially on a barber cord for pictures this morning. So I could probably, if I figure out what's going on here, try to put it on for y'all. Let's get that in. So and then figure out where the back is. Someone on the knit along was like, shout out to Mary Lou. I think it's Mary Lou saying, I don't like German short rows, but it just gives it a little more shape. Like I've made sweaters lately with no short row shaping and they still work, but having a little bit of short rows. Look at that. Oh, how pretty. It's bright. It's going to be a bright sweater. I was saying that on morning meditation posts. This is going to be a bright sweater. But do you have the scale handy? I
have a scale handy.
As long as it works, I don't care.
Well, if it doesn't, I have another one.
No, I think it will. I see things lighting up. Okay. Oh, it's on milliliters. Hang on. I want to see how much of this I have left. Milliliters and pounds. I think this is the one that. Nope, it's not. Okay.
You just have to keep scrolling.
Grams. Oh, I have 35 grams left. Okay. I thought I was already like 3/4 of the way through this. I'm almost 3/4 of the way through this. Like it's heading towards the blue and the teal. I thought I was gonna, I think I'm gonna finish this skein before I separate my sleeves. Because this is not quite to sleeve separation. There's like one more increase. There's one of these rows up here, down here. But I filmed a video on the little flowers. I like to call them the 4-petal flowers or 4-leaf flowers. I think I've been calling them. I filmed a video on that and how you can keep track of that staying synchronized and not off kilter. Because the last row of it looks like it's off kilter when you're on track. So no, but I was super excited to see how far this would get me, because I have the decision when I get to sleeve separation of what I want to do with my sleeves with this one. And since it's color changing yarn, it's like, do I keep all of these probably in reserve so that I can do sleeves how I want, where I want, off of this at the right color changing place? Because like when this skein runs out, I'm going to start in the middle of this skein and keep going. And I already have an example of what the short sleeves look like. The absolute short sleeves on this, it's just you, when you hit sleeve separation, you just bind them off. You don't do any, like you're done with them. I've already done that on one, so I don't really want to do that on the 2 I have going. I want to do something like, I want one of them to be like a 3/4 inch sleeve inch. My brain. It's morning and I filmed in the middle of the week for tips and tricks. That means my brain is mush today. I want a 3/4 length sleeve, I think, or like at least elbow length, and maybe a long sleeve. And I'm thinking, so this one, my lacy one, I just got back on. I had to get the barber cord on this one, so I had to take it off this one. Knitter problems, right? Knitter world problems. So this one is inside out. Not that you could tell. My lacy one, I have put in the markers for the raglan increases. So because this is a really fascinating sweater, the Ranunculus, in that you've got this combination of the yoke, the fancy yoke, which looks like a hot mess right now on this one, is what I would call all over increases. Mm-hmm. And then, which is one style of top yoke for a sweater. And then it transitions after the fancy stuff to raglan, which is where you have 4 seams, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, separating your front and your back from your shoulders. And I've done videos on a lot of like just overview videos on all of these. So it transitions from all over to raglan. And if you're making the smallest size, you don't have to do much of the raglan before you're separating your sleeves. However, all of these, I think I'm going to make really big. So my vision for this guy is super oversized. I'm not super. I'm not going to make the biggest size, but oversized. And I think I want to do the 3/4 sleeves on that one. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to play around with just having them be big and fluffy and drapey.
And just so people know,
yeah,
the more oversized that it is, 3/4 sleeves is actually only just a couple of inches.
You're not going to need much. Yeah, I'm going to play around with that. But that's kind of my vision for that one. I think
that would be better with the lace than.
I think I want to do like full length sleeves on this one. If I have, I mean, I've bogarted some of this yarn at the shop. I think it's back ordered, so I can't get more. There's like 3 skeins left. I'm hanging on to these 3, apart from those 3, to have the ability to do what I want with this sweater. So if you are falling in love with this color, we should talk, because if we don't have enough for you, I only have 3 left. You could wait until it comes off back order, or pick another color, see what else we can get in.
How many do you think it'll take without sleeves?
I was talking about that with Amy yesterday. It's it might only take 2 if I just bound off the sleeves and did the torso. It depends on how long you want the torso to be. Like I need to experiment. I need to see where's, I think it really depends. I'll finish the sentence in a second. I think it really depends on where you separate sleeves, like how much of this is used when I hit sleeve separation. Because right now I'm going through the color changes and the yarn pretty fast. as it grows. I think it's very possible, like sleeve separation, getting from here to sleeve separation takes a lot more yarn than you would think, because the circumference around your shoulders is big for even small people. It's a lot. So it could be one skein takes me to sleeve separation, and then one other skein could do my torso, and that's it. I mean, that would be beautiful if it could be balanced, if it could start with the red and end with the red. That would be so pretty. It could be that I decide to stop it there. Like, I don't want this to be a super cropped top. I've already done that, and I'm kind of over that. But some people love that style. So, like, that's the style for vests and stuff now, for like, is to have them be short and have your shirt hanging out underneath it. It's a very layered look, like especially a button down shirt, sleeves coming out, bottom hanging out. I would love to see where only two got me. But then if I'm going to put sleeves on, to have the sleeves be matching, I feel like I need two more. So that adds up. That's like $100 sweater right there. So you could choose something different. You know, this is a worsted weight cotton, but so it's both warm and light. It's not, I don't know if it's exactly like a summer top, but it's definitely maybe a spring or fall.
Well, and so if you layer it, like
if you do the short sleeves and layer,
if you do the short sleeves and layer it, or just wear like a tank top underneath of it in the summer, you know,
and I could try that
inside, like air conditioning. Some people, you walk into a grocery store and it's Arctic, but you know, if you're going to do it long sleeve, you could wear a long sleeve shirt underneath of it, and it's perfect for milder winter days.
Yeah, right. And that's the other thing is, I could make this one short sleeve, like just a little cap sleeve. With it probably means cracking into a third ball though, and trying to keep the sleeves short enough that they're not different colors, or I have to,
or you just cap it with a different.
That's what that's more kind of what I was thinking, is just cap it with just, I could pick a solid from over there, completely different, or just if I make the little cap sleeves, like basically just bind off my live stitches when I go back to it. Maybe I could do it fast enough that it wouldn't be too color changing one to the other. But this, like, it was already color changing after the yoke.
Yeah.
Or after the collar, you know. So I am pondering my options. But you all will get to see what it looks like when I just have the torso done, you know, and you could decide if you wanted to try this in a different color and just bind off the sleeves when you get to it, to not have to worry about matching sleeves. Because that is one of the issues with the color changing yarn, is matching sleeves. So this guy, what I'll say about this guy is, I put up this advice, and you may already be look at that, I can see my bright one through it. When I put in the raglan seam markers, I do think this top is kind of fun, because you can learn about some fun stitches in the top and how all over increasing works, and then get a little bit of practice with raglan increases.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of skill building happening with the sweater, which is really fun. When it told me to place my markers for raglan increases, your she calls it end of round marker. Some patterns will call it beginning of round marker. Your end of round marker is in the middle of the back. And then she has you put in 4 more stitch markers, which is where the increases will happen. I definitely recommend using either a different size, a different shape, or a different color of stitch marker there. Like I just happened to, in my journey with this, end up with a really big stitch marker for my end of round marker. So I had the wiggle room to just use I use all different colors, but they're a different size circle for my other 4. So I know which one's the end of round marker and which one is the one that I'm doing my increases on. That way you can keep track and not end up with a big hump on your back because you've been increasing there too. But that is my piece of advice on this part. If I hadn't been like, I'm going to make progress on this, if I had decided last night I was way too tired to do this video and it had to wait till Monday, I might have gotten this to sleeve separation. It's kind of fun. There's so many other projects of mine that are like, knit me I'm sad. I'm sitting in your
I wouldn't know
I'm
anything about
sitting
that.
in timeout. Yeah, because you've done how many?
I
You have
have
started.
4 started ranunculi. I have my Hap Shawl. I have like all the sweaters I didn't get finished before I started my ranunculi. In fact, I'm still pondering those. Yeah,
Pondering what?
other sweaters.
It's not a thing.
Not a thing.
No.
It's like projects on needles. And then I was pulling this one, it's my Zoe one, out of the bag yesterday, and I lost like that many stitches because it was still on a 16-inch needle. And
did you have to rip stuff out, or did you find it and save it?
I got it. So shout out to Amy. She was like, you might as well, I just chucked it back in the bag with the stitches off. And she goes, you might as well grab the stitches now and then go back and fix it later. And so fine. And so I scooped up what stitches I could. And there were only 2 drop stitches that, real easy.
How
and
is
it
that
wasn't
one,
in a bad.
how was that one coming out? Because it's such a different texture.
It is coming out actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
I am on the pearl slip one with yarn in front, pearl, the first.
That's the right in here.
Yep.
That's that little part.
And that's generally where I've been sticking them on larger needles. So for people that are like, hey, when do I switch? It builds so fast.
Really quickly right in here.
That by the time you're on like row, what?
I was able to put this one on 32-inch needles almost right after the first increase.
Yeah.
Because I did such, I'm waiting for her to be done.
Okay.
Because, bless you.
Thank
Because
you.
I did such a stretchy collar, I could get it on 32-inch needles. Like this is on 32-inch needles length right now. The one I'm knitting here is on 40-inch, but it's also on a barber cord. I couldn't stretch it out like this unless it was on a barber cord because this is more than I
picked a 30. I didn't have my 32-inch at home, so I'm buying another 32-inch today. I could at row, this is row 12. I probably could have put it, or 11.
Yeah.
I could have put it on a 40-inch. It just, when you look at top down, they build so fast that you can go from 16 to 40 like in just a couple of rows.
Yeah, I should see what the other one looks like while we're talking. So that means, okay, I didn't know if the yarn was wrapped around my back. That means getting it off this one and getting it on the other one. So, but with the barber cords, that shouldn't be too hard. I need to order more barber cords, by the way. We'll talk about that off camera. We're out of like 2 colors. So, anyway, no, but it's interesting to see how like a plant fiber, and this is a plant fiber, but the way it's constructed, it's kind of smushy like an animal fiber. If we're talking a foreign language here, just, ask us questions for next week. We've talked about it in the past, the differences, but it's really fascinating to see them when you're working with stuff. Like this is not as see-through, and you can see the pattern really pops. Yours, the pattern, I can see the pattern, but it's also very lacy because of the thickness. Are you on 10s or 11s? That's another reason. She's on bigger needles.
So I'm on bigger needles, but
so her stitches are more open. And that's so dark, they might not be able to see.
But I will say, like, okay, so I don't do the recommended cast on. I start at 90 stitches because I like them big open necks. And so like the neckline on this looks way bigger than the neckline. This is the same size needles, if I can untangle my.
But it's an animal fiber.
It's an animal fiber.
It's the merino.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't look as.
The neckline on the cotton, the Zoe's cotton and linen, the neckline on that is already stretching and not bouncing back. That's the biggest thing of plant fiber versus animal fiber. Not that all cotton is going to stretch and grow, but it's not going to bounce back. That's the thing. We've heard from some knitters that their cotton stuff will bounce back if they wash it. And if they maybe throw it in the dryer for a few minutes, depends on the construction of it, what's going to happen. So I say do everything with caution. But they're going to behave differently. So whereas cotton you might be like, we've had people say, I'm not sure if it's going to stretch over my head. It might stretch over your head and just not bounce back. So in the long run.
And I'm okay with big and open.
Mm-hmm.
So
if you're not, like there are people making the sweater, but they don't really like a big open collar and they don't really like big open, lots of positive ease. That means you're going to have to figure some stuff out, and you might have to try stuff and rip it out and try it again, because there is not necessarily a magic solution. Or if you're looking to us for that, we don't know that.
I play with going bigger. So like my purple thistle sweater I wore the other day, it was written for a size 4 needle and fingering weight, and I did it on a 10.5 out of bulky. So I like going bigger and looser, but going the other direction, I don't have any like recommendations.
Is the answer you probably get. But the other thing that whenever someone asks for advice on things like that, this sweater is one, if like we keep saying it's magic, you don't have to test your gauge and it fits, and that's because it's super oversized. And if you don't want that, then you have to test some gauge stuff and you have to do some math. And one of the reasons I don't tend to have a magic solution, or if someone says, how much yarn do I need for a blanket? Or how many stitches should I cast on for X, Y, or Z? I grimace inside a little bit, and I don't want to give you an answer because everybody knits differently. That's my adage. I keep going back to everybody knits differently. Some people knit looser or tighter than others. I don't want to say some people are tight knitters and some people are loose knitters as like a general caveat, because it's a spectrum. Everybody is tighter or looser than other people. And when someone says, well, I'm an on gauge knitter, there's a lot of things that go into that may or may not make that a valid statement. Because gauge is like, there's the gauge that's on like ball bands.
Yeah.
But that isn't consistent anymore across yarn companies.
We would love to, in a perfect world, we could spit out numbers for how much yarn is this going to take me and whatnot. But
we give you approximations.
And there are websites that go, hey, if you're doing a blanket this size, it should take you about. But if the pattern calls for a certain size needle and you don't have that, and you're like, I'm not going to buy another one, so I'm either going to go up or down, that changes life. If you're using a different fiber or yarn, even
it can, like Liz is using different fibers and different thicknesses on the same needle, and it's coming out different.
Yeah.
It is not consistently like magic. Like even this top, which I say is a magic top, like depending on the fiber you use, like these two things that I'm making different sizes. That the ultimate test would be if I made them the exact same size, would they come out the same size? I don't know. I think I'm having too much fun with trying different things out to take my experiment that far. But it's very possible that these, even if I made them follow the same instructions, they would and the same needle, they would come out different sizes. Well, because they're different fibers.
We learned early on we were gonna do a crochet project together, and it's 17.
It's gonna be faster if we both made little hexagons.
And it calls for a certain size hook, and we both got the same size hook and the same yarn, and mine fit nice and neatly inside Rebecca's.
Yeah, hers was a lot smaller than mine.
And Rebecca went, oh.
I went, huh, okay. Oh, this might even be bigger
right now
than the cords. Oh, we do somewhere. I don't even know where. But this might be stretchier than the cord. I took it off only on the cord and not on the needle, so I could just put it on. And I think it's bigger than this 60-inch cord, which again is because it's stuck in my ponytail. It's because it's going over my shoulders and stuff too. So as I do more of the if I want to test this and not have it be on the needles from here on out, because I'm going to do more increases, I am going to have to put it on multiple barber cords or barber cords and needles. And see, here are the Here's the 2. Look how nicely that's going to increase right in here. And if you're thinking as you're looking at it, well, wow, those are like your front is really big already. That's the idea. I'm going to follow instructions to make it even more oversized. And because it's all lacy, it's going to drape in. So even though my sleeve, you might be thinking my sleeves are going to be way out up here. It's all going to drape and fall and be lovely. And I'm very excited about that. But can you see the pattern?
Oh, yeah,
Even on the lacy stuff, you can still see the pattern. So getting back to what we were just talking about, squirrel.
Not a thing.
Is so what I had a thing I was going for. I'm going to try to see if I can circle back to it, because the whole idea of gauge or tighter or looser or all those kinds of things, like we've said it many times before, and this is all doing a wibble wobble, which is also distracting me. We've said it many times before, like half the time if someone comes in and says this isn't fitting right, there's 2 things that could be off. One is if it's not fitting right and you didn't test your gauge. I don't want to use the word blame. The issue may be with how you knit as opposed to how the pattern writer knits. It could also be if you are convinced you are an on-gauge knitter, like 90% of the patterns you pick up, you can pick up the needle they're calling for and dive in and you're fine. Because the person writing the pattern has a gauge that kind of matches traditional standards of 20 stitches for 4 inches on a worsted weight yarn, that kind of thing. You could have come across a pattern writer who their personal gauge when they were writing and testing this pattern is different than the industry standard.
I found that because I can pick up needles and follow the pattern, and 8 times out of 10, because I've had a couple of oops, have it come out perfect, exactly what I was looking for. One was a hat on itty bitty needles, and I blame the itty bitty needles. But you knit differently on itty bitty versus bigger. And the other one was a worsted weight shawl pattern that promised hugeness. Supposed to be like,
she was a happy camper because
1,200 yards of just absolutely glorifying hugeness. And I got through the pattern and it was half the size that it was supposed to be. And I went to the project page, and 50% of the projects either took the right amount of yarn or half the amount of yarn. And I went to the comments and the pattern writer was like, well, check your gauge. It was split 50-50 though, as to those that had her gauge and it worked right. And those that used less yarn through the pattern had a smaller shawl. It was split 50-50. So like it is a gauge thing where half the people can knit the same as a pattern writer and half don't.
And I get little bubbles in this now. I have had customers come in who did a gauge swatch, and then the sweater's coming out huge, even though they're pretty sure on their gauge swatch, which again, yarn can behave differently in bigger quantities than in smaller ones. Gauge swatches are not, I mean, we tell people test your gauge if you want something to fit, but they're not always the magic solution. There will be times when it might not work out. And that could be because a small one behaves differently than a big garment. Some people will say, like when you do a gauge swatch, we say, if you're going to block it, because I don't tend to, block it the same way you would your final piece. Don't overstretch. But some people say, yeah, put weights on it to see how it's going to behave when there's more material there. So you're going to find all different answers or advice on that.
And as with everything
right
in the knitting world, most of the advice, even our advice, works for us.
May not work for everybody.
Like the magic, how to do short rows without any holes in your armpits,
and how to add stitches, or how to join them around without a gap, or you're gonna find people that say they swear it works, and it may not work for you. when we get back to the whole idea of industry standard, we have knitters who come in and say, but this yarn says to knit with this needle. It's not going to work for my pattern. And I want to say that the yarn companies are moving away from, like, when I teach, again, I will finish the sentence. Give me a second. When I teach knitting, I talk about how, like, say on Encore or Cascade 220, like some of the workhorse yarns, they will have a gauge suggestion on there and a needle to use. And that usually, like in the past especially, has been the yarn company's recommendation of, if you want regular, normal looking, nice size stitches for the yarn you are knitting with, if you want things that don't look too loose or don't look too tight, they recommend you use this needle for the average knitter, and you will come out with this average number of stitches. Yarn companies are, especially with their novelty yarns and their fancier yarns, whether or not they're expensive, they're fancier. They are moving away from that. If they have, they're moving towards, like, this might look like, when you hold it, it might look like it's a sport weight, but they want you to knit it on the needle you'd use for a worsted weight, like an 8, when a sport weight you usually knit on like a 5 or a 4. And they'll have a gauge listed on it for a worsted weight, 20 stitches rather than like 27 or 28. And someone will look at that yarn and go, but that's so thin. And there could be some kind of logic for why the yarn company wants it to be thin and fluffy. And everybody's breaking all the rules now, or they're coming up with new rules. And so the thing you might have, if you are a knitter who's been knitting for a really long time or coming back to the craft after a long time, the things that worked for you in the past with what is being recommended on the label may not function the same way anymore, because their yarn companies are coming up with new fibers and new ways to make fiber. And like this one's cotton, but it's not necessarily behaving like people expect cotton to behave. And they're changing everything on us. And sometimes you just have to experiment with it. And for some people, letting go and seeing where it takes you is not fun. And for some people, it's super exciting. And so you have to decide what works for you and figure out how to make that happen. Like, it's not like you have to change unless you want to change. So that's my big one thing.
I love the fluffy, knit it bigger. Of course, that's like my happy place.
Yeah, but we have knitters who come in and they'll be like, but this looks too thin for what I want to do. And then it's like, the yarn companies changed the rules, so don't use that yarn. We'll find you something else, or take a chance and see what happens.
We've had a couple of people come in and with the mohair, one of our yarn companies, they call it a DK because they want you to knit it on the bigger, because it's going to fluff.
Because it's got the halo.
But
I'm still treating it like a lace weight.
Yeah.
And adding it to
We've had a few people come in and go, oh, I'm knitting it on like a 0 needle. And I'm like, you can, but you're not giving it room to do what it does.
I try to take the rules of knitting and crochet as guidelines.
Yep. It's pirate
play around with them. It's pirate code. Parlay. No. So we should actually open up the shop soon. So we're probably going to go. I'm trying to think. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot it.
Were we going to talk about subscriber numbers?
Yes. Our subscriber numbers are shooting up again. It's really cool. Where were we at today?
We are at 784.
784. That is like 16 people until we hit 800. Now we're going to run into an issue. If numbers keep escalating the way they are, we're going to run into an issue, because we like to give you a sale when we hit a new level of subscribers. And I don't want to stall out our subscriber numbers. Oh my gosh, no. But we have all these events coming up that already have sales happening. And I don't necessarily want to do 1 million sales at once or have a really big sale before the yarn crawl, because the yarn crawl, like we were discussing this before we filmed, there's pros and cons to that. There's like, have a massive sale before the yarn crawl and y'all get the savings and we get some cash flow that helps us with the yarn crawl. But then we have nothing in the shop to sell people for the yarn crawl. So
it's a catch 24.
It's a catch 5,000. No. So we would love you to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. It's wonderful. We love that our numbers are like exploding. Like it feels like they're kind of exploding, even if it's like 3 people in one day. We're like, oh crap, yay! Ooh. So keep giving us those yays. But know that what were we saying? Like, there's a really good possibility if we blow past 800 this month, we will celebrate that next month after the crawl. That doesn't mean don't subscribe. I mean, by all means, subscribe. We would love that. We would love to keep our numbers rolling. And we will have a sale when we hit 800. We just might not have it the day we hit 800. We might hang on to that so that we can keep the celebrations going, because we're going to have a huge celebration at the end of the month for local yarn store day. We may have some sales on things that day, and you can't combine sale things. So, you know, we usually Casapinka has a buy yarn from the shop and we'll give you a code. So those, I'm still brainstorming here. The yarn for the Casapinka stuff may not be on sale, but everything else will. But you'll get a free pattern if you buy yarn for the Casapinka stuff. I'm still figuring that out. Whatever. Well, I have till the end of the month. And then right on the heels, that's the April 30th. Right on the heels of that, we have our first yarn crawl in like 3 years. It's only 2 that we haven't had it, but that means the last one we did was 3 years ago.
We go home from local yarn shop day, recover on Sunday, do whatever we need to do to get ready on Monday, and on Tuesday
and we have a whole week.
Yeah,
it's insane. So we hope we hit 800 subscribers soon, because that would be so awesome. The sale, if we do that sale, if we hit that sooner than the yarn crawl, we are going to hang on to that big sale until after the yarn crawl. And then we'll have, we should still, I don't think the yarn crawl is going to wipe us out of stuff in the shop, but who knows, but we'll figure it out. So you can still save on all kinds of lovely stuff, and we can still have a successful yarn crawl. So we love you.
we're getting kind of nervous about
Maybe that's why I woke up with anxiety today. Okay. We have so much to do before then, though. Like, that's the other thing, is we have so much to do to prepare for the crawl. We're not going to have time to pack up packages from a massive sale.
When we do our sales, it's like way more than we can keep track of on a normal day. And we're entering into not normal days. So
anyway, okay, so we have to go and try to just get through today and maybe get a few things done for the crawl. I don't know, we'll see. And I just had more ideas for the Casapinka thing. So yeah, we're gonna go, and we'll talk to you next week. If you want to come to knit night, we are doing sit and stitch tomorrow night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Enter Zoom with the shop phone number
828-877-3550.
And then we will see you next week. All right. All right.
Like, subscribe, ring the bell, Patreon, all the fun stuff.
Yes,
Yay!
if you'd like to support the shop in a monetary way, you can always go over to patreon.com and sign up for a monthly subscription to support all the work that we're doing here. Any way you can support us, even if it's just giving us a thumbs up on this video, is super appreciated. So see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.